Yeah.
Okay, at 6:05, I'm going to get started again. I just reviewed a couple of questions in the chat. I think I can answer some of them. In regards to the gates and there was a question about a gate and a phase. A phase is where the work is performed, and a gate is where decisions are made based on the evaluation of a certain phase before you go to the next phase. And I think that was well answered already by Ahmed. There was a question, some discussions around the market segmentation model, and if you could perform a needs analysis within the segments of the models of those market segments. And the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, you can characterize the market segments in any way you wish to meet your needs, your competitive needs, based on what you need to do and what you are looking for. I've used these market segmentation models to serve different needs and to answer different questions. You could simply use that segmentation model to identify who's the competition in the market segments and who are the market leaders. You could identify how the market is growing within those segments. You could characterize how many patients are in each of those market segments. So really, how you characterize those market segments is really based on what you need to know, but it's still very powerful to demonstrate your knowledge of the total addressable market. What are the segments within those market, and how do those segments differ from each other? And you can perform needs assessments within that as well. There was a question saying, is Canada the right place for creating innovative product in sense of fairness? You can look at this in a number of different ways. I do know this is when most companies developing an innovation, they're looking for large results. They're looking for a large impact globally. US market is quite often considered as your first market, or maybe some parts of the European market, could be some parts of the Asian market. But Canada is not always the go-to market, perhaps, but that does not mean that you can still set up shop in Canada and execute a global strategy. But your investors, they will dig down on that. They will, if you are going to launch in the United States first, and if you are based in Canada, you're going to have really a formidable operations in the United States to carry out and execute the strategy. So I think that there's a lot of questions to be addressed depending on where your headquarter is and where your go-to market is. And there are a lot of questions around the sequence of product launches. These product launches the product development process is regulated by regulatory agencies like the FDA, Health Canada. There's the European process as well, and every jurisdiction around the world has its own regulatory body that oversees product approvals. So a lot of I would say major decisions of where you're going to set up your company and where you're going to launch is largely going to be based on the dollar opportunity, the competitive landscape, but also the regulating authorities, the regulators, and what the hurdles are. And your decisions really has to be a strategy based on what is the best mix of elements that you need to consider to decide on where you're going to launch and where you're going to be located. So I can't answer that question in one answer, but there's a lot to consider. Okay, let's move on. Before we do our workshop, quickly on market analysis and market research, because that was another goal that we were to achieve in this session. These competitive assessments and market segmentation strategies, quite often you have to leverage market research and results from market research reports in order to carry out these exercises. And Market analysis provides answers, it generates insights, and it forms decisions on the markets you're going to play in, your customers, your products and services, your competitors, and it makes you more knowledgeable. And I think it better positions you to make good decisions. The benefits are, it helps you confirm your knowledge, set realistic goals. I believe it elevates the confidence that you have in your ability to set a good strategy and forecast, and it also mitigates your risks. For those of you who are new to market analysis and market research, quite often they're broken down into either secondary or primary market research. It's very common to begin with secondary market research, followed by primary market research. Secondary market research is the leveraging of published data and information that's already out there, and to use that data to, you're basically searching for data that already has been collected. You don't have it in your fingertips, but it's there, and it can help you answer questions like, how big is the market? Who's in the market? Who are my customers? Who are the competitors? This is what secondary research is excellent for. But sometimes we move on to perform primary market research, either qualitative or quantitative. Usually this involves engaging a client. It could be a patient, it could be an industry collaborator. This is done through focus groups, face-to-face interviews, online engagement. And here, unlike secondary research, the data is collected directly. And this will answer questions that you can't answer otherwise through secondary sources, like, are the customers willing to use my product based on how they view my product? Is my product or service priced competitively and priced right entering this market? Does my value proposition align with the lens of the customer? These are critical questions that can only be answered through primary market research. Here on the left, on the top, you can see a product development cycle starting from discovery through to a product launch. And market research is performed across all phases of product development. In the early stage of an innovation that you're developing, usually market research is focused on doing a market opportunity research, product development research. Perhaps you're going to examine product partnering and licensing. But as you move along that product development path, you move on to product launch plan research and post-launch research and more. This is a very simplified version of the types of research that you can do along a product development path. But it just kind of shows you that market research is absolutely critical to help you make critical decisions along the path of product development and commercialization. It's an iterative process, and I'm going to share with you some tools and tips to make this really easy for you. Number one, and always start with defining what is the information that I need. Ask the questions that you are trying to answer. From there, you can better evaluate the sources of information that you need to gather in order to address those questions and so forth. A rule of thumb is always start with secondary market research before you move on to more costly primary market research if it's needed. There's a lot of information and a lot of sources of information that you can use to gather your intelligence, such as the internet, for example. And this is just some examples of sources that can provide you very broad information about the market or the information that, or about the intelligence that you wish to gather. But you can also go to other sources of information to get much more specific data. And it really depends, again, on what information that you need. But for those of you that are about to embark on a secondary market research project, This is a helpful slide deck because it gives you some insights into the sources of information that you can use. By the way, I'm a huge fan of the University of Toronto Rich Resources as an example. There are many sources of information that you can tap into using their systems. Historically, I went to marketresearch.com and IBIS World. Now, it requires for you to show an identification. You enter the university and they assign you to a special computer, and only these computers can access this information. But IBIS World and marketresearch.com generates very rich reports free of cost. Industry can pay thousands for these reports, but these reports range from global market for medical devices, big data and healthcare, global biotechnology, and pharmaceutical manufacturing. And if you take a look on the right-hand side, these reports are unbelievable. They provide you an executive summary. They show you the growth of the market. You can identify the various revenues that are generated, the revenues that are generated over time. You can look at trends, including how many procedures. In this case, this is for an orthopedic. So they show the orthopedic procedures in Europe, US, Asia Pacific. Really an incredible source of rich information that can give you an excellent starting point in performing the market research that you need to do to develop your product. I got just, I think, 3 more slides here, and then we wrap up and we go on to the workshop. CDAR and EDGAR, you all may be familiar with these tools, but these tools are repositories of information for public companies in both Canada and the United States. And you can tap in to this search engine and look up a proxy company, a company very similar to the type of company that you are in or that you're looking to create. And you can find news releases on IP, partnerships, certain investors, or even a buyout. Quite often, I've seen many companies use CDAR and EDGAR to find a proxy company on valuation, for example. It's a good way to put a stake in the ground and to defend yourself with investors by showing that you know this market and you know some of the major deals that have already been made out there. And the EDGAR and CDAR search engines, I think, are phenomenal to help you achieve that goal and build that knowledge so that you make the right decisions for your company. Mars can generate intelligence reports. You can also, if you already have an investor that comes from venture capital, they may have access to certain venture reports as well. So I think it's unlimited out there, and how you can use your creativity to find sources of information that can help you answer the critical questions that you need to answer through market research. And I put an asterisk on these because I think the Mars market intelligence and reports like the Dow Jones reports, there may be some limitations into the access, but you just need to reach out to your network and find out what is possible. Careful with the sources of information that you use. Ask a lot of questions about it, right? Higher credibility, Health Canada, clinicaltrial.gov. Lower credibility, Wikipedia, media reports. Trust me, I have seen it all. But you really want to align yourself with sources of information that's very accurate and that's credible. Primary market research, it's rigorous, it's more costly, usually developed by specialists who are trained to get the answers that you're trying to get from the people that you are interviewing in primary market research. It could be qualitative or quantitative in nature. And firms may be large with a broad focus, but you can also work with small boutique companies. I'm going to actually go to this next slide. I want you all to, I actually checked the status of all these companies today at noontime, and they are all still vibrant and healthy organizations. These are some incredible companies that can perform market research for medical device and biopharmaceutical companies, with some focus more on market access, some focus more on digital technology. PharmaCare Strategies here focuses more on long-term care. Irrespective of the company that you're working for, this is a really nice directory here that can help guide you very quickly to the type of third-party companies that could assist you in performing your market research. So that's just a very high level on market research. It's critical to inform, mitigate risks, confirm the value of your product and your company, and it's continuous and iterative. It never ends, because what you learn one year, it'll change the next year, and it's something that we do on an ongoing basis to ensure that our strategies are always up to date, they're accurate, and that we have a lot of confidence around what we're doing out there with our resources based on these market reports. So that's the end of the didactic session. I now just want to go back to the workshop. So I understand that Ahmed is going to break everyone out into a group. We're going to spend a half an hour in breakout. Once again, in your team, have one scriber, and that scriber is going to populate this working template on page 8 of the you all would have received this by email, right? So a scriber is going to fill this out. They're going to put in the variables. The team here is going to do some of the research on the web. And I am hoping that there will be at least one volunteer amongst all the groups that's willing to kind of show the output that you have from this session. Okay, have fun with this. It's pretty easy. Remember, just spend about 10 minutes reviewing and learning about sleep apnea. You can go to any other website. I just want, based on what you've learned on sleep apnea, could you just create the variables that you believe would define what you think is the total addressable market? In other words, every sleep apnea patient should belong here somewhere. If time permits, create what you believe are the segments using these boxes. And then if time permits, if you can characterize any of those segments, that would be fantastic. But don't worry about taking it that far. I am going to present to you how this was done based on a real world case study when we're done. So let's do this up until 10 minutes to the hour, and then we'll spend 10 minutes looking at these results and having a good discussion. So Ahmed, I leave it with you right now to create the breakout sessions with the groups. Are there any questions?
Okay. Perfect. Before breaking out to groups, first I wanted to thank you so much, Nick, for the great and outstanding presentation and a lot of information on how to perform market analysis. I just wanted to share something with the audience as well. So things that I have found useful as well is sometimes innovators also identify a few companies. I think Nick also touched a little bit on that during the presentation. So you can identify a few companies in the space, and what you can do is that you can listen to their quarterly conference calls, or to read their financial statements or reports. That gives you a little bit of information or a wealth of information on this sector. Another thing is that there are depending on your clinical domain or where you're looking at the market, there is information from health organizations. So let's say you're looking at cardiovascular technologies. You could, look at the American Heart Association. They release a lot of annual statistics about certain disease states and procedures. So things like the number of cardiac surgeries performed per year in the US, for example, or the number of angioplasties done in the US. So you can get a lot of information on the trends and dynamics and the number of procedures and how frequently these technologies might be in demand by looking at that. Finally, and I think that was also mentioned, but I think it's very important, accounting firms produce trends and in the life sciences reports, companies like Deloitte, PwC, or EY. These are free and give you very good information on the industry, on specific stories from companies in the market. Again, all are kind of free resources for you to gather market information.
Excellent.
Hey, if I could jump in, but also remember that as you're gathering the market information, it's really important to do a thorough job, but also to estimate what portion of that market you potentially can access. So I hate reading, pitches or grants or slides or whatever, and we are dealing with a $235 billion market. Well, yeah, but you're not going to get 100% of the market. So how are you going to segment it? Where are you going to approach it? What's your strategy, and how much are you aiming for as a goal? It's important.
Yeah, I love that point. And that's an example where it's okay to say the total addressable market is 2 billion, but our go-to market is 150 million, just as an example. And then once we succeed in that market, we have a strategy in place to expand and to tap into the other markets. But you hit it, you're so right, because I've seen so many presenters kind of really blow it on pitches to say, oh, we're going into a $5 billion market, but they don't clearly define of that $5 billion market, what's the target sub-market that you're going after first, and how will you get there? Excellent point. You hit it right on. Okay, so I'm going to give this one back. We're losing a little bit of time. If we could come back at 10 minutes to the hour, that would be great. And again, take the exercise as far as you can go. You're not being judged here. Have fun with this. There's no right or wrong. I will give you an example as well. But if we could get maybe one volunteer, it would be great. So I'm gonna Ahmed, if we can go into the breakout sessions now, yes, that would be excellent.
Yes, thank you, Nick. I'm actually doing the breakout rooms now. So we will have probably 5 breakout rooms with about 7 participants per room.
Okay.
And it's being created right now. And here we go. We'll see you guys at 6:50.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. Look, I know this was a pressure cooker. I know the time was very short, but again, I never expected anyone would complete this exercise. But I'm curious to know if there are any teams out there that made some progress in at least defining your variables and what you felt were the variables that would define the total addressable market. And would we have a volunteer, first person to put up their hand, that would be willing to kind of share the output of the exercise that you did, even if it's incomplete? Is there anyone out there? I don't want to. I don't work in a style where I call anyone out. I won't do that. I won't do that. But okay. So Jaspreet Randwana, thank you. I'm truly grateful. Can you share? Can you give Jaspreet the permission to share her screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You can.
Okay. Share. We're just going to review the one.
Okay, sounds good. So I was the scribe for my group, fair warning. The presenter was Jessica, if she does want to go. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to share.
Okay.
No worries.
I'll share it for you, Jess, if you want to just do a quick run through of it.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. So we determined that there were 3 areas for sleep apnea. It was obstructive sleep apnea, central sleep apnea, and mixed sleep apnea. We also determined that excessive daytime sleepiness went across the board to all 3 conditions. Cardiovascular rising BP was amongst the obstructive sleep apnea, but it was not amongst the other 2 conditions. Cardiovascular advanced was also linked to obesity, as well as the other 3 areas. The cardiovascular advance also included other areas such as stroke, hypertension, so on and so forth. Complications with medication went across the board to all three, as well as complications with surgery. Now, what it doesn't show is that we also put weight under the risk factor, as weight would be an issue amongst obstructive sleep apnea versus just being in the cardiovascular rising.
Okay, well, you know what? Very well done and congratulations. The benchmark exercise is a little bit different from this, but you're almost there. And I'll tell you why. The benchmark exercise that I will show you is that the variables on the top here on the x-axis, it was obstructive, sleep, and mixed. Some people can also put pediatric apnea as well, but I think pediatrics can be true, but careful. Pediatrics can be a subcomponent of mixed, central, and obstructive. So it depends on how you look at it. Number two, on the left-hand side, the y-axis, you had what looks like a scale of severity, kind of excessive, some with cardiovascular. So you were on the right path. Now look, you guys were given a task. You were given 20 minutes to read and to come up with the market segmentation model. You probably did better than people who know this area but don't know how to use these kinds of models. So it just shows you the power behind, once you have a good methodology and model in place, and then you do your proper research to gather the information, things come together really nicely. Congratulations. Thank you for putting it out there and sharing this. And I loved your thinking. I hear my earbuds winding down, and according to my phone, I think I have about a few minutes left on here. So that means it's time for me to wrap this up, and let me share with you the benching exercise. So here can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone
Yeah,
can?
we do.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, here we go. The assignment review. Again, thank you, good job. So this is the model that was created by the organization, how they saw it. Obstructive, central, and mixed sleep apnea. You got it right. These are very different causes of sleep apnea. One is a physical issue. The other one is an issue with brain and the signaling of a signal to the muscles, and mixed sleep apnea is a combination of both. And if you look here on the right-hand side, I'm just going to try to get rid of this. Sorry, I'm just going to get rid of something here. Okay, there we go. They use the severity of sleep apnea: mild, moderate, and severe. And mild is 5 to 14 episodes every hour. If you got severe apnea, where you have 30 or more episodes, this can be fatal, actually. It's a very serious problem. And but this is one way of doing it. This is variation one. Are you ready? Here's another variation. You could potentially, oh, sorry. I like this one because it's high-level segmentation. It demonstrates the total addressable market. In other words, all people with sleep apnea, they belong in here somewhere. And the variables allow you to characterize these segments more detailed. Here's another way you can do it. You could look at physician specialties who treat these patients, and you can put your mild, moderate, severe as subcategories of the x-axis, if you can see here in a top. It's just a way to add a third dimension on a 2x2 model, right? You got obstructive, central, mixed, mild, moderate, severe, and you're either seen by a primary doctor or a sleep specialist or an ENT or a neurologist, particularly who are managing the people with central sleep apnea. This one is more detailed. It incorporates the treaters on the left. Here's one more. In this one, you could just choose one, because they developed the mandibular splint. So now you can create a third variation and just choose obstructive here, although I did ask for all segments, but once you do all segments like this or this, you can then do one that only looks at obstructive because that's what your product is largely made for. And you can put mild, moderate, severe, and then you can also include whether the patients have not been treated, they're treated and not controlled, or they're treated and controlled. What I'm showing you is that you can use variables to slice and dice your market segments to a very, very narrow population that's very specific and targeted, maybe too targeted. But the point is that you do it the way that serves your company best. To wrap up, I just want to show you how this works. There were 4 segments based on this simplified sleep apnea model. Obstructive is very unique. It's a physical problem. You use devices to help to address the physical breathing that's causing the breathing constraint. Central sleep apnea is different. It can be treated with other devices and maybe in combination with a mandibular splint. Combination is different. Then you have this group here of severe. Severe could be caused as part of an underlying issue of another medical problem. So from here, we can ask questions like, what's this sub-market like? How many patients? How many people are treated? Who's the market leader of the intervention? And then you could answer questions that look like this. And this was what was done. 84% of all sleep apnea cases are obstructive. 1% of cases are mixed. 15% of cases are sleep apnea, sorry, 15% are mixed. 1% central, 84% obstructive. This one here is difficult to determine because it often coexists with other comorbidities. These are very complex patients. So if I am an investor and you're telling me that these are the market segments, I now want to hear your strategy. And the strategy is as follows, right? With a mandibular, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. With a mandibular device, the target market is obstructive sleep apnea. In fact, what they demonstrated to their investor, we're going to generate 6.5 million year 1, 28 year 3, and a 15% share of the overall market in year 3. Where our secondary market will be mixed sleep apnea, where you still may need a mandibular device. And the central sleep apnea right now, we're not going to launch any products there, but we are going to examine partnering with another company because that really takes a whole other area of product development and devices. This is actually an example of how you can use market segmentation to inform a strategy and to direct your resources to a very specific targeted market segment that's based on a total addressable market. This is the total addressable market. Each of these buckets here are your unique and distinct market segments. And this is an example of how you could use a 2x2 model to inform your learnings, to generate learnings and to inform your strategies in your companies. I went 5 minutes over. I apologize, but I hope that you all got a lot out of this and that you could see really the simplicity behind using these tools. They're fun to use. They make you a better organization, a smarter organization. And I think they position you to make the right decisions and to deploy your resources in the right places. And we know resources are tight everywhere. So thank you all. You're an amazing group. And
oh, sorry, Nick.
Went silent.
Yeah, I think we lost you in the last few seconds. Are you still there, Nick?
I think his Apple Buds died.
Yeah.
Most important lesson, don't present with Apple.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Nick will be
That wasn't
coming
being
back.
recorded.
Oh, Nick is still here. Nick, can you hear us?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello?
Now we can, yes.
We can hear you. Okay.
You guys, you know
You can't
what?
hear us. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you. uh, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Nick.
Everybody can hear you, Nick.
We can hear you.
Well, okay. So I'm not sure if you can hear me. Nick, but
Just one second. Record breakout rooms, reaction, disable video. Juliana, come here. I need help really quickly. I lost my sound. How do I get to my sound? Please. No, the camera is here. I need the sound. I need to stop using these. I need to go to sound, and I'm in Zoom.
Go to the microphone.
System preferences, maybe, and then
Hide video, disable.
sound.
No.
Not sure if that will resolve it. Nick, you're muted right now.
Unmute.
Yeah. Can you hear us now?
Okay. Hello?
Yes.
We can hear.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Nick. Can you hear us?
Hello? You can hear me? Joseph, you can hear me now?
Yep.
I hear you.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. For some reason, I cannot hear you, but let me just look at my sound once again. I'm glad that you can hear me. I can't hear you, but I can communicate via chat.
Okay. Terrence, you have a question. I would highly recommend you pose the question in the chat.
Yes, you can ask a question. Thank you. The down arrow beside the mic.
Well, it's the up.
Okay, I think I got it. Here we go. The speakers, Logitech. I think it is the down arrow beside the mic. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Perfect.
I really apologize. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's the up arrow. I had my directions confused.
Yeah. Okay. I can take any questions more broadly from the group if you're willing to stay. I'm all yours.
Thanks so much, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, Terrence have a quick question.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation, Nick. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. In your slide, you kind of showed in that market segmentation table the annual expectations. I'm guessing that's revenue, like the 6.5 million for year 1 and 28 million year 3.
Yes.
How are those estimated? Is like what are the assumptions I guess made in terms of those figures?
Yeah. You know, excellent question. First of all, what I've illustrated to you here is just an example of how you can use these models to present something that's meaningful, right? In this case, someone would have presented, look, we understand this market better than anyone, right? We understand the different types of sleep apneas, the different severities of sleep apnea, and our product is going to largely play in this space, obstructive sleep apnea. And, you know, here are our projections for this market segment. You could put anything you want in here. This is just an example of how you can use a market segmentation model to convey decision-making and strategy and forecast. I have seen these models also used internally in a company to convey product development plans. In other words, you know, our product for this market segment, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, clinical trials, whatever it may be. I've also seen companies that change the variables for other purposes because there are different ways in which you can look at total addressable market and market segments. Like this, for example, when I showed you, you could do variation 1, variation 2, or variation 3. And if I was to look at a crystal ball and try, or if I was to look back and say, how did they come up with these numbers? There was probably some kind of a market research and forecasting exercise that they did. And then they take that information and they extrapolated it and they put it into the market segmentation model.
Right. And just a follow-up question. Let's say, for example, the population here, I don't know, there's 10 million people that fall under obstructive sleep apnea. And all of the 10 million is equally distributed between mild, moderate, and severe. So is there like, out of the 10 million, for example, is there an assumption where only 8 million will potentially participate or buy the product to come as, to kind of get an estimate of what this revenue might be?
Yeah, maybe it's possible. Actually, I personally don't know the market that well where I can answer those questions. But you see, these questions that you're asking, this is exactly what happens in a due diligence exercise it could be a new person coming into your company and you're onboarding them and they're going to be part of a product team. Well, they need to get caught up on what's our product, and they need to be aligned with a common understanding. What's our potential? What's our forecast? And what do we think we're going to make, right? These kinds of due diligence discussions, they happen with with investors. They'll come in, they'll sit down with you after your presentation. If they really like you, you can sit down with them for 2 to 3 hours and they will do a drill down and they will ask exactly these kinds of questions. And you could use these market segmentation models, not just in a pitch presentation, but you can have it as part of a backup 300-page slide deck, which is used to address due diligence. It's part of your arsenal, part of all the things and the knowledge that you need to have to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. So I love that question. And yeah, you could have if that's a $30 million market, it could possibly be 10 million, or let's say 10 million people, mild, moderate, severe. I don't think it's distributed that way, but conceptually, these exercises, these are the types of questions that you need to ask yourself, and then you need to carry out the market research to answer these questions and then illustrate the answer of those questions using models like this that make sense to people. They understand, okay, this is the whole market. I understand the market segments. And I also understand the analytics and the metrics within those market segments. This is beautiful stuff. I mean, we're just scratching at the surface of all the kinds of information that you can put in here, but this can be a very powerful tool.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Mohammed Abdullah, you have a question?
Yes. Thank you, Nick, for this nice presentation.
Thank
So
you.
in regard to the market segmentation, I can understand why you have put it as obstructive, central, and mixed, so we can target the obstructive. What is the benefit of classifying it as mild, moderate, or severe here? What's its role? Like, what difference does it make in the projected revenue on
Yeah,
this?
that's a really good question. You know, this is just, the fact is that it may be that mandibular splints is more commonly used in mild apnea, moderate apnea, and it's possible that in severe apnea, there could be other devices that may be used. In fact, an argument can be made. Can you see my slide still? Yeah?
Yes, we can.
An argument can be made that maybe because this is a case study, right? I'm not the owner of this, but the idea here is it could be that you could make an argument for this, right? So therefore, maybe there's a different strategy for the severe apnea patients. But the idea of putting mild, moderate, and severe, these patients have different needs. Mild apnea, I bet you there's a lot of people out there that have mild apnea, they don't even know about it. And a family member says, hey, I caught you stopped breathing a couple of times, right? But there are people with severe apnea where it can be a life and death situation. You know, imagine having 100 episodes in 1 hour. So these patients could be treated very differently. And it's always to know how subset of disease severity and patient outcomes, how it plays into treatment decisions and so forth.
So Nick, this now makes sense. Like you made exclusion of the severe apnea, but in the
Yeah.
beginning, like it doesn't make sense. Why we classify them and we did not target any specific group? This was my question. Like,
No, absolutely. So I base it on a case study, and the case study, this is how it was done by a previous company. It doesn't mean they were right or wrong, but I think they're on the right track, right? With the exercise, they're on the right track. They developed what they believe is a model that captures every sleep apnea patient. They identified the market segments. They characterized and slightly quantified those market segments. And then they kind of explain, this is how we're playing in this market. Remember I said at the very beginning, market segmentation and competitive intelligence will help you answer the questions of where am I going to play and how am I going to win? So you could put much more information in here that explains that. That's the beauty of these models. They're powerful. They can be adapted. They can be evolved. And you can have different versions of this for different purposes. You can develop a segmentation model that informs your product development path with evolving new product lines. It can inform where are we going to put our resources to drive clinical trials. Some companies don't have enough money to play in all segments at the same time. So they have to pick and choose because of cash constraints and human capital as well. And also your knowledge and so forth. Some of these companies may have a forte in one of these market segments, but a little bit distant from other market segments. So it really depends. But these models will allow you to kind of apply it to the way that serves your organization the best.
Sorry, thank you so much, Nick. I was muted.
Thank you.
We're way over time, but we can take one more question if that's okay with you, Nick.
Yeah.
Okay, Jaspreet, go ahead.
My question was a little out of scope, so if you want to skip me, you can. I'll ask it first, though.
Okay, what's your name?
Jaspreet.
Hi, Jaspreet. Oh, Jaspreet, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for
Good,
being
thank
here,
you.
Nick. It's an amazing
Thank-
presentation.
Thank you.
So my question had to do a little bit earlier on in your presentation. You mentioned how currently the way the market is working, we're moving a lot towards, let's say, data and digital health or telemedicine right now. And when you were talking about that, you did mention that at one point remote communities are trying to include more of a 5G infrastructure to improve connectivity there. So I was thinking, if you have a product that is related to digital health or telemedicine, in a way you might be like negatively impacting certain communities and certain markets. For example, the remote community in that situation, if they don't have the connectivity right now, your products may be actually exacerbating some of the disparities they face. So in any time in a market analysis, would you be looking into the markets that are not prioritized or maybe negatively impacted by your product? Is there a spot there for that, or a strategy to forecast maybe in the future you could tap into that market? It's a pretty big question. So
You know what? Wow, you kind of blew me away with this question. I love it because, but I don't know if I got the question properly, but I was thinking about your question in a certain way, because maybe I'm biased or whatever. But if I was developing a digital technology or any innovation that required a 5G infrastructure, that better be in your landscape analysis, right? When you're going to be looking at all markets to play in, I think you do need to look at the markets that are better positioned, the markets that would better position your company to roll out your technology. So what do you need? You have to have the proper infrastructure like 5G. You have to have what I'm going to call healthcare teams in various jurisdictions that are willing to move to the cloud so that the data can be shared, and it would position you to implement what I call virtual healthcare models. There needs to be a buy-in with care teams to for finding solutions to interoperability. I'll give you an example. All these different care teams, like we have genomics, we have pathology, radiology, and all these systems are driven by different platforms. And can these platforms talk to each other? And that's why there is all this emphasis here to ensure that we have interoperability and connectivity so that the data can kind of all converge into one place, and care teams can make fast decisions to treat people. You got to have the infrastructure in place. There has to be a buy-in to go to the cloud. Another big thing that we have to deal with is managing public perception and the concern about your data being jeopardized by in the cloud. What assurances are there to ensure that privacy is adhered to? So it's a much even broader issue than what you raise in your question. It's very complex. But here's one thing I can tell you. It's happening. This train has left the station. It is moving. We are going in that direction. And if you are playing in this space, there are multiple partners that are going to be involved in your success. Some of those partners will be government, it could be federal, provincial, citywide, community-wide. There will be strategic industry partners. There will be regulators and so much more. It's a high-risk game, right? But if you have a novel product that can help the healthcare community achieve these goals that we see here, and this is why there is so much work being done to address these 6 areas of global healthcare? I loved your question. Thank you.
Can I jump in for a sec to I
Yeah.
think I have a different perspective on Jaspreet's question. If you're doing this kind of analysis and you stumble into a clear area that doesn't meet the requirements, think of it as an opportunity. So if the 5G infrastructure doesn't actually exist, it's not a reason necessarily to discount that market segment. It could be, under the right circumstances, the best segment to go. With 5G or other delivery methods, you might get government subsidies, or you might get infrastructure plans. Quite frankly, that's what Bell did by establishing a cellular network in the 90s. They said, Canada doesn't have this infrastructure. Let the government subsidize and pay for all our networks. So the reason Bell has the best network in Canada is because the Canadian taxpayers paid for it. They don't mention that little bit. So the point is, I think sometimes noticing gaps is just as important as noticing where the services exist.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both Joseph and Nick. That answered my question very nicely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we have to end the session. We were 25 minutes beyond time. Thank you so much, Nick. That was such an outstanding and insightful session. I loved how you, you educated our audience not only on the process of market research and analysis, but you have also primed them on, the current landscape, how market research and competitive frameworks fit within the bigger kind of commercialization process, and how some of these tools and resources could be utilized to evaluate and assess market opportunities. That was superb. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I just give a word of wisdom for everyone?
Absolutely.
These models might not work for you. You might not like them. You may have a better approach, and that's okay. But I just wanted to show you the power behind the 2 segmentation models. We didn't even have enough time to cover the single cascade model, which is also phenomenal. But the point is this, is that these are methodologies and frameworks, and people have spent years in developing them, and they're there for your taking and for you to implement, to give you yourself a competitive edge and to succeed. I believe that without competitive analysis and without segmentation, you will fail ultimately, because they're so critical in informing the right things to do. And for those that do it poorly, well, you run some risks. And for those that do it really well, I think that you mitigate your risks to the best of your ability. That's how you should look at all these models. And this is the worst time of my time with you, because I'm saddened, because I know we could have these wonderful conversations for hours. But maybe we can book another hour sometime in the future and have a great roundtable on this. I am open to it, but I will leave that for you guys to decide. I thank you for this time. Amit, thank you for helping set everything up. And I am available at any time should anyone want to reach me for any reason.
Thank you so much, Nick, for being very generous with your time and expertise and sharing this with our students and our community. Thanks again for that. A quick reminder to our attendees that you will have access to the recording and to the slides as well. And thank you for joining us this evening. Our next session is taking place on Tuesday, February 8th, and we're having a workshop on the process of ideation and design thinking in healthcare. You can register through the website. I've posted that in the chat at sunnybrook.ca/medventions. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
But